you're gonna start to get an idea of how straightforward they are, how honest they are, etc. One thing you can also ask to try to test them, to get a little more out of their critical thinking skills, is to ask them a question like this. In today's video, we're gonna talk about how to find a good personal trainer or functional fitness expert or movement coach, movement professional, and possibly even a physical therapist, but there are some specific caveats for that. I'm gonna talk about the pitfalls. I'm gonna talk about some of the absolute must-haves, the must look fors, the things your professional needs to have to help you if you have something like hip pain, knee pain, back pain, shoulder pain, foot pain. So if you're ready, let's get ready to think right, move right, and feel right. In a previous video, I mentioned that I stopped seeing clients one-on-one because I got kind of annoyed with people not actually doing what they were supposed to do and not listening to the things I was inviting them to try. But that's not the only reason I stopped coaching. It's also because I didn't like being paid for my time instead of a result. I didn't like the fact that if we weren't able to get the result, I was still making money. So the incentives just didn't feel right for me. And I felt like I could help more people who were willing to do what I was asking them to do by making videos that showed people what to do. So those who are motivated can just do them without my having to be there, and everybody is happy. It's cheaper for them. It's easier for me. Everybody wins. Whereas if you paid me to be your coach, you are paying me for my time no matter what. And if you didn't do what I asked you to do, or if we discovered that something was super weak and we had to address that before we addressed another thing, you still had to pay me for my time. And maybe I don't even have the right answer for you and I can't ever get you where you want to go. That's inherently risky for you. You're risking money and I'm risking my time and maybe my reputation, but that's sort of secondary. Ultimately, it's risky for you as a client to try to find somebody to help you fix something when instead I can just make videos that help you for free. But that doesn't mean that having a coach is not valuable. Getting a coach who is competent, who is capable, is extremely valuable and can help you speed your journey up. A good personal trainer, a good coach can give you accountability and help you break through plateaus by giving you new ideas that you just wouldn't have thought of yourself because you aren't a movement professional who's constantly thinking about these things and wrestling with these ideas. Just as a personal example, I've been working with my body and the bodies of my clients for close to 20 years, and this year I actually hired a coach to help me stay accountable and to give me some different ideas to work with so that I would be more consistent with my own training. Despite having some expertise, I still have found it extremely valuable to have a coach train me. And for the 4 months at this point that I've had that coach, I've made some pretty obvious gains that I'm really proud of, and I know I probably wouldn't have gotten if I didn't have the accountability that a coach gives. It's important to remember that your accomplishments are deeply personal. You don't have to become the world's strongest man. I know I haven't become the world's strongest man by working with a coach, but I have regained some strength and confidence in my body and gotten rid of some of these nagging little aches and pains that I got from surfing. And now I feel comfortable working on some more advanced movements that otherwise might be scary to a 40-year-old or 40-something-year-old man. And it's because I started being more consistent and being more accountable to somebody about doing exercises that make my body stronger and that make me more prepared for stuff that could and probably should be a little bit scary. A few months ago, my back was getting sore from all the surfing I was doing because I wasn't adequately taking care of my body. I wasn't stretching properly. I wasn't even strengthening things properly. But with accountability and a coach who forces me to do stuff that I normally wouldn't want to do, I'm getting a whole lot better. Ooh. Ow. It didn't hurt that bad, but that was not smooth. Yikes. Let's just say it's a good thing my body is ready for impact like that, because otherwise I might have just broken something. So let's talk about how to choose a good personal trainer or movement coach, or even possibly a physical therapist. We'll talk about that after we get through some of these key points. I'm assuming you're gonna go on Google or Yelp or whatever review site to try to find somebody in your local area to help you, because in-person help is ideal. Of course, if you can't find that, then you can do what I did and find an online coach, but you better be on top of your game in terms of getting things done, sending in videos of yourself to get feedback on your form to make sure you're doing things correctly. But for the average person with no experience with exercise and how to do things correctly, I strongly encourage you to find somebody in your local area if you can. Now, all that said, once you are looking at a list of different coaches and trainers, or you're just looking at one, you need to ask a couple key questions. The first question you need to ask is, do they have firsthand knowledge of the territory you're traveling and your goals? For example, if you are struggling with some sort of weight loss issue, you want to know that the person you're looking at is good at handling weight loss, that they hopefully themselves have personally gone through a weight loss journey, and also that they have the professional experience to know how to help you navigate some of the challenges. We're not talking about weight loss on this channel because that's not really my big focus. We're talking about pain. So if you're dealing with something that hurts, you're dealing with back pain, hip pain, something, you want to see if there's any bit of that in your trainer's story. That trainer should address what made them become a trainer, and they should talk about things like aches and pains if that's part of their story. If it's not part of their personal story, then it should be part of their professional story. They should have experience with people with these issues, and they should show an open-mindedness that allows them to work with people with different challenges. All right, so this is kind of important, so let's talk about it. When you're looking for a trainer to help you exercise your way out of pain, it's important to remember that they're not going to claim that they can fix a specific medical disease, and they shouldn't. And in fact, none of us should really be obsessing over these medical diagnoses and these alleged causes of aches and pains, because the medical system clearly doesn't understand what causes aches and pains. In fact, what I always tell people is don't get caught in RIPs, rest, ice, injections, pills, and surgery. All of those solutions have some pretty massive downside risks, and except rest just leads to atrophy, and atrophy aches. So when you're looking for trainers, know that they're not going to say, I'm going to fix some medical issue, because if they do, they might have some medical group after them trying to put them out of business, because the medical system doesn't like people fixing themselves for cheap. Hospitals get a massive portion of their revenue from elective surgeries like orthopedic surgery. Just FYI. And orthopedics is a multi-billion-dollar a year global industry that keeps hospitals running and keeps a whole lot of people flush with a lot of money. So what you're looking for in a trainer is not somebody who claims that they can fix a specific issue, but rather somebody who seems to be good at helping people move better, period. You're looking for a trainer who can help people move better. Your goal in the long run is to move better. Don't get all obsessed with the medical diagnostic names. Obsess instead on improving movement, improve function, and you're gonna find that that yields a whole lot better results than going to somebody who says, oh, you have this diagnosis, therefore here's my cookie cutter sheet of 3 exercises that aren't gonna work anyway. Okay, hopefully that's clear. Now, because you aren't a trainer and because you probably haven't ever opened an anatomy book, you might not know how to judge whether somebody is a good critical thinker, whether they're going to be open-minded enough to figure stuff out with you. So we'll talk about how you can do that later in this video. The second question you need to ask is, do they have success personally and professionally? So personally, how do they look and move? If you are stiff, if you feel like, oh, I can't pick something heavy up off the floor, I can't even pick something light up off of the floor, then you need to look at this person. Are they able to move well? Do they look like they understand how to use their body? Are they stiff and immobile? If so, they're probably not going to be the person that you want to work with. I actually went through an experience with this years ago. I was feeling like, oh, my aches and pains are starting to pile up. Maybe I just need to find a good coach. And I actually identified one online who was in my local area, and I reached out, sent an email, and I said, hey, I'm dealing with these aches and pains that I think came from lifting weights without paying enough attention to recovery and stretching and all that. And I'm wondering if you might be able to help because you look really experienced. You look like you're really great at bodybuilding, but I'm wondering if you would be able to help me also figure out how to fix some of these aches and work around them to get them to smooth out and stop bothering me so much. And this coach, this trainer, was actually really honest and said, hey, I'd love to help you, but I'm actually going through the same thing myself right now. My body basically is breaking down from having done bodybuilding without enough attention to proper recovery and maintaining good mobility. So I don't think I'm the best to help you with this. That was an amazing response from a very honest trainer. And if you reach out to a trainer and tell them, this is what I'm looking for, and spell it out for them, they can at least give you an honest answer. And hopefully they will give you an honest answer if they're not a good fit. But if they're a good fit and they tell you, yeah, I know how to deal with that, then you can start looking at their professional successes. Do they have testimonials? Do they have references? Do they have any evidence that they can give you that they are able to help you with a problem that you're facing? And of course, there are some caveats here, which I'm going to cover in this next question. So the third question is, do they say the right things? In other words, are they honest, truthful, optimistic, but still cautious and not over-promising? You don't want somebody who's gonna say like, oh yeah, I can fix everything. It's 100% easy, no problem. I can fix this in 45 minutes. I can fix this in 45 days. I've got a plan that works for 100% of people. Anybody who talks like that is blowing smoke up your rear end and is just trying to get your money, or they just may not be experienced enough to know that there are a lot of permutations for problems and there is no one-size-fits-all approach that works for 100% of people. If you are talking one-on-one with a trainer and they sound overly confident and they're giving you all these crazy optimistic timelines that just sound too good to be true, they're probably too good to be true. Any personal trainer, any functional fitness expert, anybody who's worked with people in pain knows that the journey out of pain can be highly unpredictable in its length. And if they're relatively new and they're saying these things, then they're probably just parroting what they were taught at whatever school they went to, where it's in the school's best interest to tell people that what they're teaching is so powerful that you have these predictable timelines that you can use, because guess what? That's what puts people in the seats. So when you're evaluating a potential trainer, make sure to try to verify the things that they claim either in person or on their website. If they say, hey, I've done this and I know how to do this, just verify, make sure that basic facts are actually true. There are some people out there that I have unfortunately worked with who will be less than honest about things they're pretty sure people won't take the time to verify. But if you do take the time, you will start to notice certain red flags out there. And no, I'm not going to mention any names, though I really want to. I just don't want to give any extra attention to people that I know are dishonest. Now, before we touch on some of the specific sticky issues that might show up when you're trying to find a good physical therapist, I want to circle back to this idea of finding a good critical thinker. Now, it's sometimes hard to tell if somebody's a good critical thinker from their website because there might not be that much text, there might not be enough information, but when you're talking to them, you're going to start to get an idea of how straightforward they are, how honest they are, etc. One thing you can also ask to try to test them, to get a little more out of their critical thinking skills, is to ask them a question like this. Based on your experience, what are some potential issues that could slow down our progress in working together? And are there some things that might stop us from achieving our goals? If you ask that and they aren't prepared for that, they've never thought about that, and they stumble around trying to think of how to answer that, or they just kind of blast you with more optimism, then you know they're not a good critical thinker. Any good critical thinker in pretty much any industry is going to have had experiences where something didn't go right, and it's probably going to have haunted them. They're probably going to have spent time thinking about like, man, I hope that doesn't happen again, but if it does, what would I do differently? How could I adjust to make that go better? And they probably have had it happen enough times where they realize, oh, I can't actually solve this, and I need to just make sure if this shows up, it's kind of a red flag that we're not going to be successful. Good critical thinkers are going to be thinking about things like that, and when you ask them, they're going to go, oh, well, here it is. Honestly, this is the issue. Bad critical thinkers won't have thought about it at all, and dishonest people will just kind of browbeat you and say, don't worry, I'm awesome. I can get through this. We're gonna get through this. Just sign right here. Now let's talk about finding a good physical therapist for something like hip pain, back pain, knee pain, foot pain, whatever. This presents some very specific challenges depending on what you are looking for. So if you are in pretty much any industrialized country with health insurance involved in paying your physical therapist, you have some very unique challenges that I feel are almost insurmountable, except in some rare situations. Basically, you have to be lucky. If you are looking for a good physical therapist and you have the money to pay them cash for whatever services they render, then you don't have as big a problem. In fact, if you are looking for a physical therapist to fix your body and you will be paying them, insurance will not be paying them, you have all the same options as what I've mentioned before with personal trainers. You should be asking all the same questions, and you should hope that they are going to show you how to fix yourself ultimately. Now, with physical therapy, this is a big point that you need to hammer on, because a personal trainer is generally going to be trying to show you how to do exercises, help you get stronger, stretch, all these things. But some physical therapists may have been trained to really focus on passive modalities, meaning they're going to have you lie on a table, massage you a little bit, they might rub you, might use a laser, they might use whatever random tools, a Graston technique, whatever that they've been trained in, they paid money for, so that they can charge money to do these services that don't actually empower you. So with physical therapists, you need to make sure you're finding one that is going to empower you and not just give you passive treatments, because passive treatments don't make you stronger. They just maybe deal with some short-term issues, but long-term, you still have to build strength and control and know how to help yourself. So you want to also ask your physical therapist, your potential physical therapist, what their approach is and whether they're going to be empowering you or whether they're just going to have you lie on a table. But that's all if you're paying cash for physical therapists and you're going to find one that you really resonate with, who's been through what you've been through, who understands your needs, and who is willing to think outside the box and be a good critical thinker. And again, you figure that out by asking the right questions. However, if you are using insurance to find a physical therapist who's going to help you, you might run into some bigger issues because, as I've mentioned in a previous video, insurance reimbursement schemes dictate what some physical therapists are allowed to do to treat specific diagnoses. So even if a physical therapist has the right mindset, even if they're on the same page, sometimes they're still gonna have their hands tied by the insurance reimbursement regulations. So if, for example, your hands hurt, your physical therapist might want to help you work on your shoulder or even some of your postural issues to help you. But if this is an insurance case, they aren't going to be allowed to help you. They're only going to be able to treat you up to your elbow in some instances because insurance will only let them go one joint away. Talked about this in a previous video about hip impingement and what physical therapists won't tell you about physical therapy for hip impingement. I'll link to that in the description box down below so you can watch that whole video. But the long and the short of it is that insurance can really muck things up, and it's probably no fun for the PTs, and it's definitely no fun for you when you might think, hey, my back hurts and I know it's related to my hip, but the PT is only allowed to treat my hip, or they're only allowed to treat my back. Otherwise, these are different conditions, and there's a whole mess and maze of insurance crap that's gonna stop them from doing the best possible job for you. And this is all assuming that you're not in an HMO that just assigns you to a random physical therapist who's just gonna give you a cookie cutter set of exercises to do and might not even supervise you at all while you're doing those exercises. But as long as they're being reimbursed, everybody's happy, right? So those are my tips for finding a movement professional, finding a personal trainer who can really help you make progress with your body. I'd be curious to know what your tips are. What has your experience been like? What have you found to be helpful? Share all of what you've learned in the comments section down below. At this point, I hope you understand why I put so much effort into putting free content out there to help people. It's because it really feels like the most efficient way for me to help as many people as possible with a minimum of risk for you and a minimum of frustration for me. If you're looking for more tips and free workouts to help you rebuild your mind and body at home, check out the Body Rebuilding Basics at uprighthealth.com/BRB. It's a free course, free information, all kinds of free strategies, tidbits, advice, ways to manage your mind, ways to work out and exercise your body, free follow along workouts. It's all there, uprighthealth.com/BRB. I also want to say thank you to these people right here for their support of this channel. If you find my content helpful and you want to support future content like this, use the join and thanks buttons on YouTube or go to uprighthealth.com/donate. I really appreciate your support. In the meantime, I've got some more free videos that YouTube thinks you would like right here. Like, share, and subscribe with the bell notification on. And as always, I hope you remember that pain sucks. Life shouldn't.